Hi everybody, welcome back, and if you're new, welcome. My name is Gabby, and if you've never been here before, never watched any of my videos, I cover true crime cases, and all of the cases that I cover are a little bit older. They're all basically 20 years or older, so if that's something that you might be interested in, maybe go down below, click the subscribe button, and also make sure to turn on the post notifications to be notified every time that I upload. So I was reached out to by a woman named Anna who requested a couple of cases for me to possibly cover here on my channel. The one that really stuck out to me is one that they stated that they have barely seen anyone cover online. The only real mention of it that they've ever come across is their local news in Texas, which, if you don't know by now, watching my videos, I always want to cover the cases that need more attention, even if there isn't much information out there regarding them. So let's get right into it. This is the unsolved disappearance of Michael and Pamela Mayfield. Today's case takes place in Houston. Houston is a vibrant city located in the southeastern part of Texas. It's known for its booming oil industry, diverse culture, and love for country music. It has an incredible night scene, and during the day, you can always enjoy yourself doing something like exploring the Space Center. This case takes place in 1985. In 1985, the first version of Microsoft Windows was released. The Breakfast Club hit theaters, and Nintendo won the hearts of video game lovers everywhere. It would also unfortunately be the year that two kindergartners were abducted on their way home from school. Michael Ray Mayfield and Pamela Mayfield were siblings, with Michael being 6 years old and Pamela being 5 years old. Michael had actually started kindergarten the year before at Betsy Ross Elementary School, but for the year Pamela entered, he had actually been held back. From what I read online, it wasn't due to him not being ready when it came to the schoolwork. They decided to hold him back a grade because they said that he was too young. I'm not sure if that was meaning he was too young age-wise or too young meaning his level of maturity and how well he was listening to teachers and getting along with fellow students. Again, I'm not entirely sure. Michael was born on June 6th of 1978, and his little sister came into the world a little over a year later on July 10th of 1979. Their parents were Cynthia and Michael Gant. The children's last name was Mayfield as a result of them taking their mother's maiden name due to the fact that their parents had not been married at the time that both of the children were born. During the beginning of 1985, their parents were still legally married, but they were separated, and the two children were living full-time with their maternal grandmother, Lily Mayfield. The reasoning for why they lived with their grandmother has never been stated publicly, but we do know that they were loved and well cared for by all of the members of their family. They saw their mother and her new boyfriend and their father and his new girlfriend on a semi-regular basis. It could have been one of those situations where the two children were living with another family member until their mother or father was in a more stable living situation and were more financially prepared to raise two growing children. We do not know the circumstances still to this day. Now to the day in discussion, January 10th of 1985. We know that Michael and Pamela had walked home from school before, but they wanted this to be a regular occurrence for them. I'm not entirely sure how they used to get home from school, whether that being the bus or being picked up by a family member or a family friend, but at this time, they were insistent that they wanted to continue walking home from school. A lot of children, without the knowledge of the dangers behind it, do desire to walk home so they can feel a little bit more grown up. We also have to take into consideration that this was the mid-80s. This was a time when people were still actively hitchhiking. Most people back in the day during that time did not immediately consider that their child may never make it home from school because a stranger may kidnap them. But it was stated by Ronald Reagan that during the late 1970s and 1980s, more than 1 million children per year went missing from their homes and neighborhoods. The thing is, though, most of those children were found and most left voluntarily, which is why, unfortunately, many individuals in law enforcement will write off so many missing persons cases of people under the age of 18 as simply being a runaway case and that they will most likely return home soon. Now, Betsy Ross Elementary School is located at 2819 Bay Street, and their grandmother's home was located in the 3500 block of Deshome Street. This walk would take an adult roughly 15 minutes. I would say it would take a child roughly 20, considering that children are smaller and have shorter legs. Also, children do take their time most often because they're talking and laughing and maybe getting distracted by things on their way home. We do not know the exact location, the exact spot that they were abducted, but we do know witnesses claim that they saw Michael and Pamela playing at a park not far from their grandmother's home, that a vehicle pulled up, the two voluntarily got inside of it, and the vehicle drove off. Witnesses claimed that there was an unknown man operating this vehicle. I could not find out what this man supposedly looked like, his hairstyle, color of his hair, what color his shirt was, if it was a long sleeve or short sleeve, if he was wearing glasses or no glasses, if he had a hat on, no hat on, if he had light, medium, or dark skin. Nothing. Just an unknown man. As for the vehicle, it was simply described, still to this day, as just being a green vehicle. I could not find out if it was a truck, SUV, van, or just a small car. I'm also unsure of the ages of the witnesses. Were there many of them? Were there a few? Were they children? Were they adults? Was there a mix? Other than the people who saw them get in the vehicle, some claimed, and I'm guessing this was a different location, they saw them in the back seat of the vehicle. That, though, would be the last time that anyone in that area saw the siblings. When they didn't make it home that day, their grandmother knew that something was very wrong, and she phoned the local authorities. The Houston Police Department did a pretty extensive search of the neighborhood where they were last seen. They questioned neighbors and local children. The only information they truly gained was that the two had been seen at the park and then got into a green vehicle driven by an unknown man. The thing is, though, that even though this was a different time, Michael and Pamela knew to not get into a vehicle with someone they did not know. So, could this person have been someone that they knew personally? Well, their loved ones had no idea who this could have been. From my knowledge, no one close to the family owned a green vehicle. None of their close relatives, distant relatives, family friends, close neighbors, no one. Obviously, no one at the park was thinking the two children were being abducted, or else I'm sure that someone would have attempted to get the license plate number. Law enforcement did originally believe that the two children had been taken by a family member or family friend, someone that they knew quite well. Officer Gary Montgomery of the Houston Police Department did make this theory known to the public. Now, if it was someone they knew, could this individual have borrowed someone else's vehicle or recently bought a new vehicle? From the eyewitness accounts, the two had not been forced into the vehicle. If it wasn't a direct family member, possibly it was someone they were simply well acquainted with. Members of their family were asked to take polygraph tests. They all did and passed. They all also stood in front of a grand jury and answered any questions that were thrown their way. There were zero signs that the children had been neglected or abused in any way, and members of their family could not think of anyone they knew personally that would have targeted Michael and Pamela. After relatives were crossed off one by one as possibly having involvement in the children's abduction, authorities classified the case as a non-family abduction, but believed the two of them may have been introduced to their abductor at some time before due to the fact that they willingly entered the individual's vehicle that afternoon. Roughly 4 months later, on May 12th of 1985, a call was made to the police department that caught their attention. A man called and told the dispatcher that the children in the so-called kidnapping were alive and well and were living with their paternal grandmother on 75th Street in Los Angeles, California. The dispatcher asked him how he knew this, and the man simply said, "I know," and hung up. From there, authorities checked their paternal grandmother's home in Los Angeles and anyone else's home in that area that had any connection to the family. Both their mother and father's side of the family had relatives in the Los Angeles area. Still, they found nothing. Usually when I cover a case, I will not watch any other YouTuber's video on it because I do not want my research to be influenced in any way, and I do not want what I say in my video to sound too much like what another person is saying about the case. But because of how little information there is online regarding this case, I did watch the only other video on YouTube regarding it. And it's a video done by Casey Hudson, released about 3 years ago. Casey has not uploaded a video on the platform in over a year, but she did bring up a really good point. Why would this man just make this up? The dispatcher who spoke to the man on the phone said that he sounded like an elderly African-American man. He never gave a name though, so I'm going to assume that he definitely wanted to stay anonymous. He sounded on the phone though like he was pretty positive that what he was saying was true. Casey asked the question in her video, what if the children were spotted by this man with someone in Los Angeles who wasn't their grandmother but was claiming to be their grandmother? Yes, it would be ironic that a woman would live in the same area as their actual grandmother, posing to be their grandmother, but stranger things have happened. Or possibly the man was just calling to send police in the wrong direction. Was he possibly the one who abducted them and wanted to pin it on someone else? Did he simply witness two children in Los Angeles that looked like Michael and Pamela, but were not actually them? We don't know. One factor that may have hindered any updates, anyone possibly spotting the two at any point during that year or next couple of years, is the fact that the photos used to put on flyers and milk cartons had been taken 2 years earlier. We know just how fast children grow, and the photos on the screen show Michael at 4 years old and Pamela at 3 years old. We only have a set of 2 photos of Michael and Pamela, and it is from the exact same photo shoot done 2 years before their abduction. Their kindergarten teacher, though, actually had a photo of the class, and she gave this photo to authorities to crop and take the place of the photos they had been using. But this new photo had never been released to the public, still to this day. I'm not entirely sure why. The press had stated that these new photos would replace the ones that had been used for the case during the last 10 months, but this never happened. When it comes to the lack of photos of Michael and Pamela, we have to remember that back then, cameras were not as easily accessible as they are now. Now we have cameras on our phone and can take a photo in a matter of seconds. Back then, if you did not own a camera yourself, you most often had to schedule a photo shoot at a local department store or borrow someone else's camera. The disposable camera that we are most familiar with wasn't introduced until the following year of 1986 by Fujifilm. Yes, there was Canon, Sony, and Nikon cameras, but lower income households most often did not own one of these. When it came to taking photos at home, a lot of the photos were taken on Polaroid cameras. But again, Polaroid cameras were not cheap. I've come across plenty of cases myself where there are so few photos of the person missing, even sometimes just one photo. And sometimes the person will have gone missing as a teenager, and the photo or photos of them on the Charlie Project or the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children shows them at a much younger age. The children were abducted in January, which was halfway through the school year, so I am confused as to why school photos had not been done prior, proper school photos that would have been in the yearbook. From my experience, and even people I asked who went through school in the 90s, 80s, 70s, had their school photos done at the beginning of the year, so I'm not sure if things were just done differently at this school. Their abduction, though, took an extreme toll on their loved ones, so much so that their grandmother, Lily, suffered a heart attack only days after they were abducted. Their loved ones, above all, held hope that Michael and Pamela would be returned home safe. In December of 1984, the year before, the National Child Safety Council initiated the first nationally coordinated missing children milk carton program. Within weeks, over 700 independent dairies across the nation, through the cooperation of milk carton manufacturers, became a part of the cause to locate missing children. Michael and Pamela, like I stated before, had their photos and case information on milk cartons being distributed across different areas, but the leads that came in as a result of this proved fruitless. Their information had been entered into the FBI's National Crime Computer. Authorities were definitely taking it seriously. These children were not overlooked. If you lived in Houston during the mid to late 80s, you may remember seeing their faces on the local news, especially Channel 13, which takes us to our next lead. Channel 13, which was and still is ABC 13 Houston, was heavily covering the disappearance case. Maybe not daily, but regularly. A man called a news reporter of the station, Melanie Lawson, and claimed that his name was Stacy. and that he and a few other individuals had all worked together to abduct the children on their way home from school. That the children were actually still with him. The reporter asked to meet the man in person to speak further. Stacy and Melanie chose an area to meet. Authorities made sure she was well equipped with backup from the department, and she was wearing a wire to record everything that would be said between her and this alleged Stacy. The man never showed up. Authorities, though, were able to eventually track the phone call to a payphone near the man's home and discovered who the man was. I'm sure that you already guessed this, but his actual name was not Stacy. It was Joseph Moses Cochran. He was 28 years old at the time and had no actual connection to the children's abduction. It was simply a sick joke to him, and not a joke to just make fun of the case or try to lead police in a different direction. He actually had a very concerning obsession with Melanie Lawson. I will never understand the level of inhumanity you have to possess to do something like this, no matter what the reasoning is. It happened back then and it still does today. Just recently, I came across a video of a family desperately begging the public for help locating their son. And the top comment on the video on Instagram was a fake account posing as their son saying, "I'm right here." Not only that, but there were dozens of comments under this post finding it absolutely hilarious. I have a pretty good sense of humor, but I will never understand what pushes a person to do something like this that is just so ignorant and so heartless and can honestly jeopardize a case. This was unfortunately another dead end. Joseph Moses Cochran was charged with making a false report, and his reasoning for making the report was due to his obsession with the reporter. So it actually had nothing to do with the case itself. He would continue the harassment of Melanie Lawson in the future as well. He would end up in prison as a result of the stalking. I'm going to assume that he chose Michael and Pamela's case to grab the attention of Melanie, considering she was truly the main advocate for this case from any of the local news stations. Melanie Lawson has had a long-running career with ABC 13. She's actually still part of the network today. This case, though, is one that leaves people wondering if these two are still alive out there somewhere. Could it have been one of those situations where they had been taken by someone who wanted children of their own to raise and had met the children before? Maybe it was a friend of the family's that stopped by once or twice. It could have been a parent of a fellow classmate that simply wanted to abduct another child, someone that had spoken to the two of them before at the park because they had children of their own that frequented the park. We truly don't know. Almost 4 decades later, and their loved ones are still searching for answers. They want to know who took Michael and Pamela on that afternoon on January 10th of 1985. Based on the eyewitness accounts, this is not one of those situations where their loved ones do not know what happened, that they simply just vanished. No, someone took them. This is an abduction case. Michael and Pamela got into a vehicle that day. There is a high possibility that someone still in the Houston area, or possibly somewhere else in the United States, around the world, we don't know, knows exactly where they were taken from there. Many times, Houston, Texas has ranked #1 for most human trafficking cases out of every city in the United States, even more cases than New York City and Los Angeles. Although it is, of course, insanely heartbreaking their families were never able to see them grow up and so many cherished memories never experienced, we can only hope that they were never trafficked or their lives taken. They would have been at an age where they remembered their lives before the abduction. So why wouldn't either of them as adults today ever want to find their blood relatives? Were they possibly brainwashed into thinking their families didn't want them? That has, of course, happened before. The Top Ladies of Distinction Incorporated, a nonprofit humanitarian organization out of Houston that focuses on serving youth and adults, offered up a $500 reward at the time for anyone who came forward with any information leading to the discovery of what happened to the children. The money was never given to anyone because their whereabouts are still unknown 39 years later. Michael Ray Mayfield was 6 years old and his little sister, Pamela Mayfield, was 5 years old at the time of their abduction on January 10th of 1985 from Houston, Texas. They were last seen entering a green vehicle driven by an unknown man. Some physical characteristics of the children include Michael having a burn scar on his right wrist and Pamela having her ears pierced. If you have any information regarding their abduction, you are urged to call the Houston Police Department at 713-884-3131. Remember that you can stay anonymous. Michael today would be 45 years old. On the screen is an age progression done of him in the year of 2018 of what he may have looked like at the age of 40. Pamela today would be 44 years old, and on the screen is an age progression of her done during that same year of what she may have looked like at the age of 39. When I say that information regarding this case is limited, I mean it. With any case that I cover on my channel, I always hop on Newspaperscom and I just dive through newspaper articles about the case and see if I can find any more information on there. If you look up Michael and Pamela Mayfield on Newspaperscom, all you'll really find is the equivalent of a missing persons flyer. No in-detail information regarding the case, just their pictures, a little description of what happened, and the number to call in case you spot them. During my researching, I also came across 2 newspaper clippings, one that got their ages wrong and one that got the date of their abduction wrong. But thank you all for taking a little bit of time out of your day to learn about Michael and Pamela's case, and I truly hope above all that their loved ones can gain some sort of peace and closure eventually when it comes to this 39-year-old mystery. If you have a case that you possibly want me to cover here on my channel, make sure to send that request over to gabulosiscaserequests@gmail.com. I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day. Stay safe like always, and I will see you in the next one.